And when you focus on spiritual evidence, you stop needing to convince anyone. You stop needing to prove you are awake. You stop needing to perform your spirituality. You simply live it. And there is a great relief in that, because performance is exhausting. And many of you have been exhausted, not only by the world, but by the pressure to be a certain kind of spiritual person. As spiritual evidence becomes your focus, you naturally move into the next phase, which is the quiet dissolution of spiritual performance and spiritual identity, not as a loss, but as a deep maturation. As sovereignty stabilizes, you begin to notice that you have less interest in presenting yourself as evolved, enlightened, awakened, high frequency, or spiritually advanced, because the need to present usually comes from insecurity, and insecurity fades when embodiment is real. This does not mean you become apathetic, and it does not mean you stop caring about growth. It means you stop needing to be seen as growing. You stop needing to announce your process. You stop needing to collect identities that signal your awareness. And you may even notice that you feel more ordinary, which can be surprising to the mind that once expected awakening to feel like constant fireworks. But ordinary, in this sense, is not dull. Ordinary is integrated. Ordinary is grounded. Ordinary is stable. Ordinary is what allows higher consciousness to live on earth without requiring special circumstances. Many of you have been carrying spiritual identity like armor, sometimes because you were misunderstood in your early life, sometimes because you were judged, sometimes because you felt alone, and the identity gave you a community and a language. We do not dismiss the value of that, but we also note that identity can become a subtle form of dependence, where you fear stepping outside the role, where you fear being seen as imperfect, where you fear changing your mind, where you fear losing the community if you stop repeating the same ideas. Sovereign consciousness loosens that grip. It allows you to keep what is true and release what is performative. It allows you to be sincere rather than consistent for consistency's sake. It allows you to be honest without needing to match a persona. This shows up in everyday ways. You may stop debating spirituality online because you realize debates rarely produce spiritual evidence, and your energy is better used living your truth. You may stop posting every insight because you realize that your life is your transmission, and you do not need validation for it to be real. You may stop trying to fix your vibration every time you feel sad, and instead you allow sadness to be a human wave that moves through without becoming a story. You may become more comfortable saying, "I don't know," because sovereignty does not require certainty, it requires coherence. You may find yourself laughing more because humor is grounding, and a grounded being can integrate more easily than a tense one. And the most important shift is that spirituality becomes less of an activity you do and more of a way you are. You bring consciousness to how you speak, how you listen, how you clean your space, how you eat, how you work, how you rest, how you create, how you respond to conflict, how you manage fear, and how you treat yourself when you make mistakes. This is what we mean by integration. You stop trying to escape your humanity, and you start letting consciousness infuse your humanity. You become a bridge without trying to be a bridge. You become a stabilizer without needing a title. And as performance falls away, you may find that progress becomes quieter. And because it is quieter, the mind may wonder if anything is happening. But something is happening, and it is profound. Because what is happening is that you are no longer relying on external feedback to validate internal growth. And that sets the stage for the next phase, where you learn to trust growth even when it is invisible. And you learn to recognize the subtle signs of transformation that occur beneath the surface. And so, as that performative layer dissolves, you may notice that the most meaningful changes start to happen in a way that is not immediately measurable. And this is precisely why so many of you temporarily doubt yourselves, because the mind is trained to look for visible evidence before it relaxes. And yet consciousness often shifts first in the places where no one is applauding and where no one is watching. Invisible progress looks like responding a little more slowly when you are triggered, even if you still feel the trigger, because the victory is not that you never feel, it is that you stop being owned by what you feel. Invisible progress looks like noticing the beginning of a spiral and choosing to breathe, or choosing to take a walk, or choosing to drink water, or choosing to step away from the screen before the spiral becomes a full-body storm, because sovereignty is not a perfect life, it is a regulated relationship with life. You may still have days when you feel tired, or uncertain, or frustrated, or emotionally tender, and the mind will sometimes interpret those days as failure, as proof that nothing is working, as evidence that you are not there yet. And we want to remind you that there is not a destination you arrive at once and for all, because consciousness is a living field, and a living field adapts. It is normal to have periods where you are integrating, where you are recalibrating, where you are outgrowing old identities, old relationships, old habits, and even old spiritual expectations. And those periods can feel quiet, because the drama is not the point anymore. The drama was useful for waking some of you up. It is not useful for stabilizing you. You can think of this like learning any skill. At first, you see dramatic improvement because the shift from not knowing to knowing a little is huge. Then you hit a phase where improvement becomes subtle because you are refining, and refinement is less visible, but far more powerful. It is the difference between knowing how to play a few chords and learning to play with timing, tone, and feel, or the difference between learning to drive and learning to drive smoothly, or the difference between learning how to speak kindly and learning how to stay kind when you feel defensive. Refinement is where sovereignty is built, and refinement often feels like nothing is happening because what is happening is internal, and internal change does not always provide the mind with a scoreboard. One of the most helpful shifts you can make right now is to measure progress by what you recover from, not by what you avoid. Many of you are sensitive, and because you are sensitive, you can become discouraged when you feel activated. But the question is not whether activation occurs. The question is how you meet it. Do you return to your center a little faster? Do you apologize more cleanly when you miss your mark? Do you stop punishing yourself for being human? Do you make choices that are kinder to your body, your mind, your schedule, your relationships? Do you notice the moment when you would normally abandon yourself and choose to stay present instead? These are profound upgrades, and they are often invisible to others, but they are not invisible to your field. You will also notice, as invisible progress accumulates, that your attraction to constant external commentary begins to fade, and you may feel less driven to keep up with every take, every update, every prediction, every scandal, every outrage wave, because your system is learning that coherence is more valuable than being informed about everything. This is not ignorance, it is discernment. You begin to see that there will always be another narrative, another fear thread, another reason to worry, another reason to feel behind. and your sovereignty grows as you choose not to feed that machine with your attention. You start to ask, very simply, does this help me live today in a way that is aligned, kind, honest, and stable? And if it does not, you step back. Invisible progress also shows up in the way you begin to respect timing. You stop trying to force your healing to happen on a schedule. You stop trying to rush your purpose into a product. You stop trying to convert your insights into instant outcomes. You allow life to meet you. You allow the next step to become clear through movement rather than through pressure. And as you trust the invisible nature of real transformation, you will also notice that a certain reflex begins to weaken in you, the reflex to fix everyone else in order to feel safe. And that is the next layer we invite you into. As you become more stable within yourself, it becomes much easier to see how often the impulse to fix others is actually an attempt to regulate your own nervous system through control. Many of you have cared deeply for a long time, and that caring has sometimes been expressed as rescuing, advising, explaining, persuading, correcting, or carrying other people emotionally. Because you sensed their pain, you saw their patterns, you felt their fear, and you believed that if you could just get them to understand, then the tension in the space would dissolve. But you are learning now that you cannot think someone into readiness, and you cannot pull someone across a threshold they have not chosen to approach, and the attempt to do so often leaves you depleted, resentful, or quietly hopeless. This is especially relevant now because your world is full of triggers, full of polarization, full of competing realities, and many starseeds feel called to be part of the healing and the awakening. You might feel that call when you see injustice, when you hear misinformation, when you watch people argue, when you notice fear spreading, or when you see loved ones consumed by narratives that drain them. And while it can be appropriate to speak, to educate, to advocate, to set boundaries, or to share what you know, sovereignty teaches you to do these things without becoming entangled in the outcome. You learn to offer your truth without attaching your worth to whether someone accepts it. You learn to help without needing to be the hero. You learn to care without gripping. A practical marker of sovereignty is that you start to recognize where you end and where another begins. You begin noticing the difference between empathy and absorption, between compassion and self-abandonment, between loving someone and managing their emotional life. You begin to see that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is to stop engaging the pattern, to stop feeding the dynamic, to stop arguing with a person's nervous system, to stop trying to prove reality to someone who is committed to their interpretation, because peace is not created through constant engagement with distortion. Peace is created through coherence, boundaries, and clean choices.